The US Special Envoy for Afghanistan is stepping down following the controversial US withdrawal from the country. Zalmay Khalilzad will leave the post this week after more than 3 years on the job under both the Trump and Biden administrations. He's been criticised for not pressing the Taliban hard enough in peace talks. Joining me now is France 24 Senior Reporter Catherine Norris-Trent. Catherine, Khalilzad's departure comes as world leaders are trying to sort of work out how indeed to engage with the Taliban. So where do things actually stand when it comes to nations recognising the administration?
Well, the Taliban, the new administration, as they call it, of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, desperately want international recognition. So far, no other country has officially recognised their government, although they are basically on a diplomatic tour at the moment. They held the first direct talks with the US since the US withdrawal just a short while ago in Doha. They've been in Turkey. There are talks starting in Moscow tomorrow without the involvement at this stage of the US, but they'll be meeting officials from China and Pakistan as well as from Russia. So they're meeting high-profile figures. But at this stage, no country has recognised the Taliban, which is something they are extremely keen for, not least lastly, because that would facilitate the flow of money into Afghanistan. Their assets have been frozen since they seized power, and they don't have official recognition. So there are billions of dollars of money which Afghanistan badly needs, and the leaders really, really want to get their hands on to get the economy flowing. But of course, countries at this stage pointing out problems they have with various policies, including, women's education. Secondary schools have been de facto closed in Afghanistan for the past month, and this is something that's been raised a lot of times. I mean, across the board, there are issues on human rights which countries are raising with the Taliban leaders. They're not satisfied on yet. The Taliban really wants this funding. They really want international aid. And at this stage, it's not clear how the talks are going, especially with the US. We've just had Zalmay Khalilzad stepping down as US Special Representative for Afghan reconciliation, because clearly the Doha agreement that he signed for the Trump administration did not go to plan, did not go forward as envisaged, as he euphemistically put it. Any involvement of the former Afghan government clearly hasn't materialised. They fled. The Taliban swept faster than most people expected into Kabul, including most Taliban members themselves. And so at this stage, that they've been left kind of flailing around, trying to get international legitimacy and recognition.
Now, you've just come back from Afghanistan, and I want to ask you, just how successful has the Taliban been in actually trying to govern the country? Because it's a very different situation, isn't it, from being a bunch of insurgents to suddenly being responsible for garbage collection?
Exactly. It's very different than mounting a functional state than fighting an insurgency. As you say, the Taliban came to power more peacefully than they expected. That was in many ways the easy part for them. They've had shadow government authorities in several provinces of Afghanistan for quite some time now, but not in Kabul and not in charge of basically the whole country. Just a few patches of resistance, notably in Panjshir. There's still a bit of fighting, but they basically have de facto control of the whole country, and it's a very hard task indeed. Government ministers are pretty much invisible, inaccessible. They say they're still in the process of taking these decisions. Very little accountability there at some stage. We were filming out on the streets. You can see these pictures filmed by my colleague Romeo Langlois with kind of the local foot soldiers, the security patrols, which are very visible on the streets of Kabul. Security, a very big concern. Of course, there are big lapses in that. We've seen huge bombs claimed by the Islamic State in the Khorasan province. There are big problems about security, and yet they have these almost omnipresent security patrols in Kabul. They say they're cracking down on crime. Crime is still very rife because people are very poor and getting not enough to eat, and it's been a big problem in Afghanistan for many years. So they're trying to put the blocks in place and trying to put a Sharia justice system in place, but it's still very early days.
Catherine Norris-Trent, thank you for that.